I wanted to take a couple of minutes today and just talk about budgets and what's really behind the budgets. So often, when people think of a school budget, they think about the numbers. And that's all they think about. How do the numbers add up? What's the bottom line? And is that important? Absolutely. But before you can get to those numbers, you have to have a clear vision of what you want your school to be. Too often people start budgets and think, okay, well, it's just a distribution of dollars. Well, that's like saying, well, for my home budget, I get X number of dollars in salary. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of wing it. I don't really need to plan for anything. I know I have these bills to pay, so I'll just kind of figure it out as it goes along, as they come in. Now, as you probably realize if you've ever tried that, is that it will be a complete and utter disaster. Why? Because there's no planning involved. It's just spur of the moment and reactionary. If you have a reactionary budget, again, are you going to be successful? Most likely not. You might be one of the lucky ones and be able to find a solution. But the reality is, if you want to make a good budget, start with the basic premise of what do you want your home life, or in our case, in schools, what do you want your school to be? What's your vision of the school? Is it a place where we just focus on academics? Well, if so, then all of your money in your budget will be allocated towards all of those things that are instructional. But what if you take a more global approach, as we do often and we should in Catholic schools, and say, well, no, we're not just an educational institution. We are a religiously based educational institution. Now, why is that important? That means that everything you do, every line item that you create, and every dollar that you spend should go towards accomplishing and creating that vision in real time. You need to have a plan that says this is what we are trying to accomplish. Now, some people say, well, I have these lofty visions of what my school should be like. Well, that's fine. But how does that factor into each year? If you come in as a new principal and you have a vision for your school, that's where you start. And then you say, well, what do I want to accomplish in year one? What do I want to accomplish in year two? What do I want to accomplish in 3 years? So you come up with a plan of action. Now, oftentimes in the political world, what do you hear? You hear people on the campaign trails making, again, it's not a political statement, but both parties say, well, we're going to do all these things. But the question is, how do we pay for those? I might have lofty goals. I might have great ideas. But if I don't have the income to pay for those, all they are is very nice things that I've talked about. But they're not real. The reality is when you take your budget, every line item in your budget, and look at it in terms of your vision, in terms of your school's mission. How does it help accomplish that? Now, people would say, well, wait a minute. Isn't that overly broad? No, it's not. Why do I say that? I say that because if you have, let's say, someone would challenge you with, well, how does the maintenance budget affect that? Oh, very easily. Because in my mission and in my vision of my school, I want it to be a safe environment for my students. I want it to be an environment that allows students to work without having the facilities impede them. For instance, if you have a school and you can't pay the heat bills and it's the dead of winter, well, that's a problem. In many jurisdictions right now, people are encountering snow. Well, did you budget for snow removal? Sounds like a little thing, but that goes to the safety issue and your vision of what you're trying to create in your school. It starts with your vision. It starts with your mission. It starts with your philosophy. And then your budget evolves out of that. Everything that you put into your budget should be tied directly to your mission and to your vision and to your philosophy. That means as we start talking about compensation for teachers, as we talk about what goes into the instructional budget, what goes into retirement, how does that fit in? People say, well, what does retirement have to do with it? Because what it says, if you're not taking care of the people who are the front line in the daily educational exercises, your teachers, if they do not have the ability to pay their bills, to be able to figure that at some point they might be able to retire, are they going to stay with you? Probably not. And you could lose some very talented people. So again, as you start looking at each item in your budget, what does it say about your institution? The other thing that's important is that, as we've talked about, and many of you have found out firsthand, school administrators are very reluctant to share their budgets. Why? I always go back to that question. Why are people reluctant to do that? Because you, as the head of the school, should be able to take any item on your budget and show what it's doing to help you accomplish your mission, fulfill your vision, and will stand up against any test that you are not following those things. Failure to share the budget, to share financial information, and I'm not talking about teachers' salaries, but the reality is I can go online in most of your jurisdictions and I can go and find out what the general salary scale is. Well, all I have to do is find out if you've been a teacher for 25 years. I go down that list and I say, this is what Mrs. Jones's salary is. If I go and say, well, Mike Murphy's been teaching for 35 years, I know that he's down here on the scale. I know exactly what it is. So we have these things about, we can't let that out. Why? If you want people to follow you, you better give them a reason why. Your budget is a great opportunity for you to do that. To put your vision, to put your mission and your philosophy upon which your school is built into very concrete terms. And then at the end of the day, and at the end of the year, you will know whether your budget has helped you or if your budget, you missed the mark and you weren't able to start a program, you weren't able to provide teachers with the necessary resources. Then your job as the head of the school is to say, then how do I fix that? How do I get additional resources to help fulfill that vision, to carry out the mission? It starts with those things: vision, mission, philosophy. And the budget should evolve from those things. If not, then I would question the validity of, number one, your budget, and most importantly, I would question the validity of your leadership. Because if all you're doing is just keeping the wheels greased on the train as it goes down the track, you might not realize that the tracks end a mile down the road, or that there's a break in the track, and you'll get suddenly totally derailed. And as you learned early on, that's why so many of our schools are closing. Again, I hope these thoughts help. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to let me know. Thanks and have a great day.